Donald Tusk last night called for an Ireland-first approach to the negotiations amid the UK's lack of clarity over the Irish border and rejection of an EU fallback proposal last week. Speaking in Dublin last night, Mr Tusk said unless the UK produces a specific and realistic solution to avoid a hard border, Professor Dagmar Schiek from Queen's University of Belfast said, "It is very hard to know what will happen next. My concern is that the lack of clarity will result in a hard Brexit and we drop out of the EU with no agreement." Getty, EPATheresa May is risking stalling Brexit talks even further. "My concern is that the lack of clarity will result in a hard Brexit." Professor Dagmar Schiek. She added it was also important to remember the proposal is a fallback proposal and includes a stipulation that the protocol is irrelevant if a different solution is found. She also said that the EU had offered some generous offers in the draft agreement, so perhaps it was hasty to reject with instead of building upon it. She continued, "I think the proposal for a protocol on Ireland, Northern Ireland on the withdrawal agreement is a major concession on the part of this institution, which British politicians, including those from the DUP, should analyse carefully before rejecting it in a knee-jerk reaction. It is not perfect, as it does not protect the all-Ireland service economy and does not give Northern Irish producers access to the EU-wide labour market, but it is the first step." Getty. Tusk called for a Ireland-first approach in Dublin this week. The government has said it does not want a customs union with the EU, without which the EU says it would need to regulate Northern Ireland's trade to avoid a return of customs checks. However, British leader Theresa May, backed by her hardline pro-British Northern Irish parliamentary allies, said that no Prime Minister could ever agree to such terms as they would threaten the constitutional integrity of the UK. Dr. David Finnemore, Professor of European Politics, Queen's University Belfast, also issued a warning saying that progress on the Irish issue must be made if the UK wants to avoid crashing out of the bloc with no agreement. He said, "This week's meetings have provided opportunities for positions to be stated, but as yet there's no real signs that we are moving towards an agreed solution." Getty. A hard Brexit would risk a hard border in Ireland. Awareness of the complexity of the Irish dimension to Brexit is gradually increasing in the British debate over Brexit. This is to be welcomed, but there is far too much wishful thinking that there are easy solutions, particularly as regards technology and the border question. Professor Schiek also added that a sea border wouldn't necessarily be as bad as DUP doommongers make out. She quipped, "If I travel to Scotland on the ferry, my car gets searched anyway, while it would mean some more inhibitions and more checks on goods. Travel by sea isn't just straight through as it is. Ryanair already enforces a rule meaning a passport is the only acceptable form of ID when flying between Northern Ireland and mainland Britain, even though this is an internal UK flight." Donald Tusk felt the wrath of the DUP with his comments last night, insisting on Ireland-first negotiations. Mr Tusk said, "If in London someone assumes that the negotiations will deal with other issues first before moving to the Irish issue, my response would be Ireland first." Responding to Mr Tusk's remarks, DUP MEP Diane Dodd said his Ireland first plan could actually harm Irish businesses. She said, "Mr Tusk's comments suggest the EU will again hold up the trade talks if the December fallback option of alignment is not legally translated. Far from putting Ireland first, this will generate further frustration among Republic of Ireland businesses dependent on access to the primary marketplace in the UK. These include Irish agri-food firms which export around 40% of the produce to Great Britain and Northern Ireland." Getty column. Eastwood welcomed Mr Tusk's comments. "The UK has a clear role to play in bringing forward acceptable proposals. However, if the EU is genuine about finding agreement, it must accept this requires the buy-in of both sides." However, SDLP leader column Eastwood welcomed Mr Tusk's comments. He said, "It is crystal clear that the EU's commitment to protecting the interests of the island of Ireland is immovable. The SDLP knows that the only solution that will stop a hard Brexit and a hard border is for full alignment with the single market and the customs union. If the British government and the DUP have another solution, then it's time they put it on the table. What is clear today from Mr. Tusk's comments, the EU is not messing about.